Hello folks and welcome to our game with myself, Shane Stapleton, joined on this fine Monday morning by Barry Hennessy on the far right hand side there, former Limerick goalkeeper, Kilmallock stopper, and Naoise Waldron, who was doing co-commentary yesterday for TG4 at Nolan Park. I'll start out, the first thing to talk about, we're going to talk mostly about the Kilkenny game at the very start, but Barry, it seems that Tipperary aren't back and Limerick have put us in our box.
Geez, no, I wouldn't say that, Shane. I think the over and back that we had there at the weekend, where you thought we were going to give you a hammer, and I didn't see it, to be honest. I think there's a very healthy rivalry and mutual respect there between both counties. And look, at the end, there was only 4 points in it, you know. So I heard an interview from John saying there was only one puck of a ball. I don't know, was he being cute about it or what, but he was right in that sense, you know. One puck of a ball and one turnover, and it was a draw game. So yeah.
Yeah. Naoise, was it a hammer?
It was a 4 point hammering, yeah, just because, like, I suppose, like, the way they won, like, the way they came back, it was point. I know then Casey got the goal, but that just made the gap bigger. Like, that was probably the most impressive part. As I said in commentary yesterday, you know, the clocks went forward, but Limerick went back, or Tip went back. You know. Yeah, Limerick they were so impressive. Like, because Tip looked really good in the first half, but like Limerick just were dominant. Like, it was kind of surreal, really.
Yeah, it was a little bit like the 2020 Munster final. But look, we'll come to that game in a little bit of time. First off, Kilkenny beat Cork 222 to 22 points. And in a way, that felt like a little bit of a 6 point hammering. Naoise, what was it like down there? What was the atmosphere like?
Good. It was funny. Before everyone seemed, I was talking to a few people before the match, and one lad said, I think we're going to get a hammer in here. And I kind of,
as in Kilkenny would get a hammer?
Kilkenny would get hammered, yeah, by Cork, yeah. Like, another lad said, I'd say, we're in bother here now. We have nobody to come in, and we have too many lads missing it. You know, this kind of stuff. So, but like, you know, 6 points, and it probably could have been 12. Like, only for Collins pulled off that great save of Paddy Keenan, and there was probably another time there where Cian Kenny could have passed it into Billy Drennan, and it could have been, you know, could have been more. But they played well, like, and like, it was not first league game I've been at where the weather was actually decent, like, so Kenny were able to play their game a bit better and they seemed more comfortable. So it was good. It was enjoyable. The crowd were mad into it as well, and obviously the kind of physicality added to it, I suppose.
Yeah, so Billy Drennan scored 113, Mossy Keown got a goal, 2 points for Alan Murphy and John Donnelly. Shane Kingston, he scored 9 points. Patrick Horgan came on, hit 3 frees. Shane Barrett had 3 from play. Barry, what was your read on the game? Did any player in particular impress you?
I think the most impressive thing for me, Shane, was the evolution of Kilkenny's style of play, that they're still able to mix it between the old Cody era of going direct when they needed to go direct, and when they were under pressure, they still had that out ball to just absolutely launch it down the field. But then they were quite cute in how they worked the ball out of the defence. They would switch it to the opposite side of the field, use the space, you know, find the man in the middle third there that was on his own. And you could really see, I suppose, just how I saw people said they weren't going to evolve with the game, that always stick to the traditional hurling, but they are, you know, they're embracing it. And as Naoise said there, like, the skill set was on full show, like, you know, so that was impressive for me. I thought Richie Hogan, to give the old lads a bit of plaudits as well. I thought he hurled well, you know, for a man you hadn't seen in a while. Popped up with a couple of big turnovers as well, you know, and got on the ball when he needed to get on the ball, and won a very good free when Kilkenny needed it as well. So I thought they were just impressive in their overall style of play. So.
And in the last couple of years, when your Limerick team would have come up against Kilkenny, would you have thought these lads are going to just long ball all day? Or, you know, when you were analysing them, what were you seeing?
Yeah, I suppose, look, they always kind of had that traditional thing, but I think the biggest thing with Kilkenny was just their intensity and their work rate. Like, I think if you put, say, the Cork team there yesterday beside the Kilkenny team 1-15, you'd probably say on paper Cork had a better team and better probably standard of hurler. But those Kilkenny lads are just, they're dogged. You know, they will work literally all day. They'll run up and down the fields. They'll hit you when you're not expecting it. You know, and you think you finally got away from them, you're going to get clattered from somewhere else. So, like, I think that's just probably one thing that Cork weren't ready for yesterday, and just the ferocity that Kilkenny brought in the tackle, especially. You know, and just the turnovers the cause. So.
A comment in here from One Stop Auto. Any chance you can get John Myler back on this morning? So we had him the other day, and he's fairly convinced that Tipperary and Cork would be following Limerick out of Munster. But we'll come back to that in a while. Naoise, do you go along with what Barry's saying in terms of Kilkenny evolving a little bit this year under Derek Lyng?
Oh, they definitely have. Like, it's funny, like, So that's the fourth Kilkenny game I've seen now in person, and the first one was the Tip one in Nolan Park. And comparing yesterday to that Tipperary game, it's like chalk and cheese. Like the crowd were on their back, like people shouting things. Like one lad I even heard saying, "Bring back Cody," and drive it. Everything was drive it. Hey, Jesus, get rid of it, get rid of it, get rid of it. But they are now like they're so measured. Like even one really good example of it was in the first half. Mikey Butler was coming out with the ball, and instead of launching it from his own 45, he just passes John Donnelly. John Donnelly takes a couple of steps, puts it over the bar. Like whereas like maybe 5 years ago that would have been just caught and driven into the edge of the square, where it'd just be either right. It's less than 50-50. So the way they're kind of motoring through the gears and going through the lines, like let's say, and passing and taking proper option and not launching sideline cuts is another thing. Nobody seems to do that anymore. It's always worked and passed, and somebody finds a pocket of space, and maybe even it's given back to the lad who took the sideline. And like talking about older lads, like Conor Fogarty was brilliant yesterday. Tommy Walsh, I know younger again, but Pádraig Walsh seems to have got like a new lease of life kind of since the Tipperary game, especially. It's like, when Richie Reid or somebody is back centre back playing that role, that Pádraig is nearly kind of similar to Barry Nash. Like he's so good on the ball and then so good using the ball. They're definitely developing, and it's great to see. Like it obviously was going to take time, but it seems to be working far quicker than I thought it actually would.
Yesterday after the game, or just as the game was ending, I was saying this is a bit of a filleting for Cork. Like Kilkenny are very much sticking it to them, Barry. Because I was like, it only ended up 6 points, but I was just so disappointed in the manner of, it just felt like they were losing the same old way. Stick passes in traffic in the middle of the field, getting turned over, taking pot shots, just running down blind alleys. It just felt like watching the exact same Cork that we've seen come up short in the last few years. A lot of Cork people getting pretty angry with me, but, they were saying, we were missing players. Kilkenny were missing a host of players. The two Reeds, Adrian Mullen, Owen Cody, all-stars, or, some amount of all-stars between them. Like, to
Billy
you,
Ryan.
was this then? Yeah, Billy Ryan. Was this any different to the Cork that's come up short in the last few years?
I think at the moment, it's very hard to see what kind of style of play they're trying to play or what kind of game they're trying to play, because you said they were hitting their stick passes and like they were trying to attack from deep. That broke down, as you said there, the resort to just either long ball or a pot shot, which isn't obviously like the Cork that you'd see. But I think Kilkenny probably condensed that middle third and back into their own half back line and brought the game back to field a little bit, and they were secure back there. So it forced Cork obviously into doing things like that, which they're not comfortable with. And I think over the years, any Cork team you've seen that were under pressure, it's when they've kind of reverted the type of trying to hit that long ball in there. And I suppose they don't probably have the ball winners inside to hold that ball up to cause the damage inside there. But like when Cork are in full flow and they're getting the stick passes away and they're breaking the line and they're breaking from deep, they're amazing to watch. It's just when it starts to break down, that's when the question mark is over them, unfortunately, and I think until they get a big scalp, I think the question mark will remain over them, unfortunately. And I'd be very slow to criticise people at this time of the year, because you don't know what's really going on behind the scenes in terms of train loads, etc. But I do think that question mark is over them until they get a scalp, especially in the Munster Championship and the All-Ireland Series side of things. So,
sorry, go on, Nisha.
Sorry, I was just going to say, the other thing as well, I was kind of talking about, we brought up at half time, was you'd wonder how disappointed Cork would really be losing yesterday and not having to face Limerick in a league final, seeing as they played them in the group, then get ready to play them in league final, and then they would have to go play them again in Championship in a couple of weeks' time. So that was another thing, because I'm not sure how heartbroken they really would be losing yesterday.
But still, like, you need to take something from these games. I wonder what Cork would take from it, other than, okay, we now know what we're going to come up against in these big games. But Barry, when you've been facing Cork in the last few years, like, what is the stuff that you've been afraid of them doing to you, and what are you trying to lure them into? I suppose long ball, like that All-Ireland final, ultimately you had them hitting long ball into huge Limerick numbers where you had the Giants. So, but what were you afraid of when you coming up against Cork?
I suppose the narrative was around when you were going playing Cork, Shane, was Cork were this explosive team that if they break from deep, that they nearly had a monopoly on this running game, whereas we probably turned that in the head and said, right, we can run too, we're not slouches either, and other teams aren't slouches either. So I think, look, if you can stop it at source, and stop them building that play in the half back line, especially with the full forward line just manically tackling, you know, and putting pressure on them and disrupting that first phase ball, it breaks it down. Because as you said, if they do get away into that second phase, into the middle third, and get the runners off the shoulder there, like that's when you're in trouble, because they will stretch you then, you know. But if you can stop it at source and stop it in their half back line, and even force their full back line, and even Pat Collins, you know, squeeze him a little bit and force him to go along with it as well. Unless you've got a Seamus Hardeney or a Conor Lehan there, you know, the other lads unfortunately are under a little bit of pressure to win that first phase ball. So it's just stopping at the source, really.
Yeah, like the last couple of championship matches, I suppose the All-Ireland final in 2021, and then last year in that first round at Páirc Uí Chaoimh, like they got goals early by running and hand passing. So, and like it's such a secure way of transferring the ball. Like, do you look at the fact that they stick pass in the middle of traffic? Like, you often have to stop to collect the stick pass in the middle of traffic, which means you're going to get hit. Like, is that something that you would have analysed?
Yeah, look, as I said, it comes back to just disrupting that first phase ball. Like, you know, that if you can put pressure on it, and if that ball is anywhere not to the hand or anywhere down around the knees or down at the feet, you know, that's when you pounce, and that's when you put the pressure on them there. You know, so that's what you'll be trying to force them to do, is just putting the pressure on the striker first and foremost, getting a little bit of contact there to disrupt that phase of ball, and, you know, hitting them on that second phase then, and making sure that you are disrupting that ball. So,
is there any of those younger players, Naoise, that Cork are bringing through that you were particularly impressed by over the course of the league? Yes, because they won 4 games out of 5 through the other. But yesterday, is there any players that stood up for you?
Only in flashes, really.
Tommy O'Connor, maybe.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. But again, it was kind of in flashes, and he was probably lucky he didn't get a red card there in the fight between like himself and Paddy Keenan. But yeah, like Tommy O'Connell, like you're saying, in flashes. But again, like Shane Barrett in flashes, Conor Cahalane in flashes, Jack O'Connor in flashes. He ended up getting taken off, I'm pretty sure, in Pádraig Power as well. Was having a good battle with Tommy Walsh. He got 2 points, but Tommy Walsh really came out on top in that one. So it was kind of in flashes. They never really, and like Barry was saying there, like, right, you kind of stopped them before they can build momentum because they're so fast, and that's what Kilkenny were able to do, because like they built a wall like across the kind of midfield there with like Richie Hogan, John Donnelly, Conor Fogarty, and then Alan Murphy, like, and they just crowded it out there. So anytime anyone tried to run or anything, they were just stopped and met, and the constant physical contact. So they were never really able to establish any kind of game, and like, you know, leaving one-on-one inside, they just, kind of like Barry was saying there again, like they have no real ball winner, whereas Kilkenny then on the flip, when they were one-on-one or leaving lads inside, you know, Mossy Keown and Billy Drennan especially were able to kind of hold the ball up. They were able to make it stick. So they're either winning it, or else it was just staying there and then creating a ruck and people would come up and support it. Cork just couldn't do that. So it was very hard. Like, I had to go through a list. They were like, oh, could you list out there the people that were up for man the match? And sure, it was all Kilkenny lads, I said. And your man, Marcus O'Buckley, just laughed beside me and said, oh, you can be sure it won't be a Cork man. So I said, well, apart from Shane Kingston, I mean, who really would you have picked? That Patrick Horgan, when he came on now, did it. I actually thought did very well when he came on. But outside of Shane Kingston, there was no one from start to finish that was kind of really establishing themselves. Even like the way they were able to, like Barry was saying there, that crossfield ball that Kilkenny were using, the way they were able to negate Kieran Joyce's influence on the game was actually class. The space they created, they'd suck him to one side and then drive it kind of over diagonally across outside him all the time to bring the inside lads behind him in. So it was just really hard for Cork to get a foothold in the game. Like,
yeah, there was 2 instances, I think, in the space of maybe a minute or two, where John Donnelly got 2 points towards the end of the first half. I think Brian Roach was forced into a stick pass just into the middle of nowhere. It went straight to Mikey Lawler, or Butler, who was on his own. He assisted John Donnelly. I think you mentioned that score earlier on. And then a couple of minutes later, somebody in the Cork middle sector hit a high ball up between Tommy Walsh and Jack O'Connor. There's only going to be one winner there. Went straight up the field for John Donnelly again. So Kilkenny are looking impressive. Do you think Limerick, like, how do Limerick view Kilkenny at this moment in time, Barry?
Jeez, I think Limerick are nearly viewing everyone as equals, and not just giving a politician's answer there, Shane. But like, I think it's a lot closer than what people think, and especially the Kilkennys, the Tips, the Galways. Like, on any given day, there's a puck of a ball between it. Like, you know, like Kilkenny did it to us in 2019. The intensity they came out with it for 45, 50 minutes. You know, like, they absolutely blew us off the park, especially in the first half. And they're capable of doing that. And as I said in the start, like, probably 1 to 15, you look at some of the players there saying, Jesus, you know, would they get on another county team? But if you were an inter-county manager there, you'd be looking at those lads going, they will work all day for you. They will put in the hooks. They'll do all the dirty work. That'll allow the other lads to, score the 13, 14 points or get the goals or get the headlines the following morning. So look, they're a lot closer, and I think John will be relishing a good challenge before coming into championship, because he knows after that game he's going to be battle hardened, and those lads will be battle hardened after it, because he'll expect nothing short of absolute manic aggression from him. So
yeah, what did you make of the melee, Barry? It seemed that Cork had just conceded their second goal. The game was gone, and then all of a sudden the fight started.
Look, I thought it was a bit of handbags, to be honest. Are we running the risk of going down the line now of not necessarily taking physicality out of it, but I was looking at it there, kind of going, was it a card? Could you flash the yellow card and moved on? Because in fairness to John Keenan, I thought he'd done a really good game. Liam Gordon as well on Saturday night. I thought the two officials over the weekend were up to the highest standard, so I thought it was a bit of handbags, to be honest, and it was just one of those things where start the row just to see could you get the Cork crowd back on your side and get a bit of a response from it, but unfortunately it turned into a card. So I think it's going to be appealed anyway. From what I heard after, I think Pat Ryan said he was going to appeal it. So
yeah, he was. I saw one bit of footage that probably will make it difficult for Owen Downey to get off. Like Damien Cahalane as well, Barry. He's probably very fortunate. To be honest, I think he probably should have seen red for that.
Didn't see that side of it now, to be honest with you, but from what I just saw, I didn't watch it back now in terms of replay.
Oh, sorry, Damien Cahalane now was the one for the penalty on Drennan beforehand, flick across the head. He was like this straight away. He was probably fearing the worst.
Yeah, look, I suppose you were told at the start of the year that what referees are obviously watching for, and anything to do above the shoulders, and anything to do contact-wise the head is, it's going to be a red card, I said. So I suppose, look, the time will tell. But,
yeah, so Naoise, you were there. Naoise, you were there. Were you at the far side of it, or were you at the near side of Nolan?
It was directly below me. Yeah, it was directly below me. We were in the nest, so it was below me. But even before that, in the first, 5 minutes, Conor Cahalane took the ear off Richie Hogan nearly as well, and you're kind of going, first I thought, Richie ducked and tried to get in under him, but when they actually showed the replay, he didn't at all. And and then you're kind of going, because that could be a red card, just because of the rules. Obviously it was, he was trying to tackle him, whatever. But Damien Cahalane, I don't know how he didn't get a red card for that. Billy Drennan is trying to bat the ball in on this side, let's say, and Damien Cahalane hit him across the head on this side with the hurl. So he was nowhere near the slitter or the hurl. So that he was very lucky there. And then Downey's one, I'd say he won't get after it, because I could see it live when it happened. It was it's a strike with the hurl, and Mossy Keown was probably lucky it wasn't a little bit lower, because it could have been awful bother. Other than that, this interfering with the helmet stuff and all that, it used to be a red card immediately. So technically, probably 3 lads could have got red cards, but like Barry said there, you flash the yellows and people calm down. But it was like in the NHL when a game is kind of going away from a team, like the automatic responses that start a fight here and see can we turn the momentum back, and that's what it kind of seemed like. And it went on it felt like, well, it was 7 minutes injury time, but it went on for ages. But probably, I suppose, the right decision, a couple of yellows and Downey, striking with the hurl, it has to be a red card,
And so that's him out of the opening Munster game against Waterford as well, which is, it's a huge blow.
Oh, massive! Sure, you're full back. That's the thing. I because then they caught it and they replayed it eventually. It's there, it's on the screen. So I don't know how, kind of like Fitzgerald's one with Clare there, that you can actually see him doing the strike and it's caught on camera, so you can't really say, look, he didn't strike him. So yeah, losing your full back is massive, especially against Waterford, because I have a funny feeling Waterford will be completely different in the championship than they were in the league, and Dessie Hutchinson won't be playing midfield.
Barry, to be fair to Cork, they did draw the rest of the game after the red card, so they were down a man from the 46th minute on, and there was injury time as well. So we do have to give them credit for the fact that they didn't just capitulate.
Yeah, no, fairness, and they did, and they worked hard. They seemed to work harder when they went down to 14. It's maybe a little bit more space and freed up, and they knew they couldn't go out and direct with the ball. But I think the interesting thing for Cork this year, Shane, will be if you look at the spine of their team, and in terms of the leadership side of things, just compared to Limerick spine of a team or Tipperary spine of a team at the moment, when things do start to go against them, where's the leadership going to come from is the big question that I suppose I have with Cork. You know, who's going to be the one that'll either control it, slow it down, you know, cause that row, without striking, obviously. But that leadership question will be a big thing to see what way they line up through the middle this year, because they will need those leaders in games like that where things are starting to go away from them, and just to cool the jets a little bit and, you know, start talking to the lads around them and bring them back into them, because look, they're an incredibly young team as well. A lot of those lads are still finding their feet at this level, so that leadership, I think, will be very important from this year.
Naoise, do you think that it would be difficult for Derek Lyng to work back in the Kilkenny lads or the Ballyhale Shamrocks lads that we've mentioned, Richie Reid, TJ Reid, Owen Cody, Adrian Mullen, or will it be easy enough to slot them back in?
Be easy enough, I'd say. Like somebody was actually before the match, one of them fellas that said, you know, like, you know, we're in trouble today. Like they were kind of, it's a big kind of topic of conversation. I don't know how many people I'd spoken to Kilkenny about it, was what are they going to do with Billy Drennan now, because he's still under 20 and then TJ is coming back. So like, you know, like one fella was saying, like, there's no way TJ is going to give up taking the frees and let Billy take him, because then what does TJ do? Like, you're kind of going, and who would you want standing over a penalty? But then funny enough, then Billy Drennan got to take the penalty yesterday and buried it. So it'll be interesting, like, because Billy Ryan has come back, Adrian Mullen has come back, TJ Reid has come back, Richie Reid has come back, Owen Cody has come back. So there's 5 lads that you would probably think would be starting. So it'll be interesting. Like, this is the kind of best thing, I suppose, Derek Lyng will be taking out of the league, is that there's a proper panel there now again. Like, so, you know, you're mixing in like a Mossy Keown, like the strength and conditioning stuff that Kilkenny must have been doing over the winter, like, must have been incredible, because Mossy Keown especially is absolutely massive compared to what he used to be. Like, his legs are huge, and I saw Adrian Mullen doing fitness runs as well a couple of weeks ago, and he is absolutely massive as well. So they'll be huge additions, physically and hurling wise, to the team, obviously. And and I think, look, every cat in the street in Kilkenny knows, like, you know, when them lads come back, they're going to be playing. Like, it's as simple as that. It doesn't really matter pretty much how well you played in the league, and, you know, they'll blend in there. Where does Paddy Keenan go? Is another thing. He's been kind of between half forward, midfield, wing back. He created the goal yesterday. John Donnelly, I suppose, is definitely deserving of a starting place. Same with Mossy Keown. So there's a proper panel there now again. So you know, looking good really for championship, actually, to be honest.
Yeah, because like when, you know, the end of the season, Cody leaves, then Mikey Carey's gone, James Maher, Richie Leahy, there's Conor Brown. Everyone assumes, oh look, Kilkenny will go through transition, but like there's all those players. Some of the lads have stepped up during the league, and I mean this as a compliment. They're like a couple of big ignorant jokes, Dara Corcoran and David Blanchfield, you know, good hurlers as well. They've also kind of put their hands up as well. It's looking good for you.
Yeah. Far better than I thought it would be. And I mean, like, Derek Lyng surely must be delighted now, because there you go. Look, you've played Waterford. The last sort of 3 games, the final 3 games going into the championship now will be Waterford, Cork, and then Limerick, right? So it's 3 Munster teams you're playing. So you can kind of play your game and test yourself as much as possible. And look, there's no better test to get ready for the championship than Limerick. And then that's when you'll see the likes of, like you said, there, Dara Corcoran and David Blanchfield especially. And then, like, even Timmy Clifford was starting yesterday, and he worked very hard and he scored a point. He's probably going for a goal. And, you know, there's a lot of options there this year that I suppose Derek has brought through from that under-20 team he had, or the couple under-20 teams he's had. And they obviously know exactly what way Derek Lyng wants to play, because they've been with him for a few years, and Peter Barry and Michael Rice. So interesting. It'll be, looking forward to the championship, yeah.
Barry, the way Billy Drennan took that penalty, it looked like he just gave the eyes to Patrick Collins as well. That'd be a very frustrating one as a goalkeeper to get done like that.
Sure, come here. Look, it's all in the forwards' favour, and the guys are just standing there guessing that's all we're doing.
But we'll move on now to Limerick 128, Tipperary 25 points. Obviously, Tipperary were great in the first half, but again, it was this huge kind of turnaround. We saw it in that Munster final a couple of years ago, especially between the 42nd minute and 61st minute. It was a run of 111 to 2 points. Tipperary just had 1 shot from play during that time. Like, it was just an incredible burst. I mean, we'll talk about the game more broadly, but just that particular burst, Barry, it was unbelievable.
Yeah, I think Colm Keys had a stat up on Twitter there, I don't know, GC8 last night, where it was Limerick and Tip since 2018. I think Limerick were -22 in the first half and +63 in the second half against Tip. you know. So like it was incredible, like absolutely incredible. Yeah, look, as you said there, Cian, already, the Tip were incredible in the first half. Limerick were kind of looking around the place going, what's going on here? And I don't know, it was just a case of the chat at half time with Shawnee, Paul and John, and the lads, and just got to grips with maybe what the Tip's system was, and then just came out and they knew what to do in the second half, you know, and just turned the screw a little bit, and just asked the question, because I think the first thing I wrote down watching the game from the throw-in was, can Tip maintain this intensity? Because like the first 2 minutes there, the hits that were going in, you could feel it when you were watching it. The intensity levels, you know, they were through the roof. And I suppose that was my big question, was would Tip be able to maintain this for 60, 70 minutes?
Did you get the opportunity to go into the game, Barry, or were you watching from home?
I watched from home, watched it on telly, and watched it back then again. And you could, like, that's the thing, you could even feel it through the television, like that's like the intensity straight away from the off. The first tip hit that went in from Allentyne in there, like it was massive, you know. So, and in fairness, they got in their faces, and I said the other day, like there was a lot closer than what people were going to make it out to be, you know. And granted, it might have been a 4-point hammer, as he said in the end, but like Tip did ask a lot of questions of Limerick there in the first half, you know. They weren't taking the ball into contact like other teams would, and allow Limerick to do the trademark swarm tackle, turn the ball over, go up and get a massive score, you know, that lifts the place and lifts the whole team. They were taking the ball just to contact, and they were spraying it out to the side, you know. They were working in their pockets, they were working in their triangles, and they moved Limerick around the place, which was quite impressive, I thought. And even their stick passing, like you always knew Tip had a high skill set anyway, but like their stick passing was crisp in the first half. It got them out of trouble. They worked some, you know, brilliant scores, and they really did ask that question.
Yeah, it was stressful to watch as a Tipperary person, especially the first few minutes when I thought, are Limerick going to overwhelm Tip? Tip steadied down. But did you feel like you were writing down a note of, could Tip keep up this intensity? So were you watching the first half thinking Limerick will weather the storm? You know, and there is that whole thing of being used to win as well. You kind of stay cool, you don't panic and let it get away from you. So did you feel that Limerick probably would turn it around after the break?
I think that's the advantage that Limerick have over a lot of teams at the moment, is like a lot of the team have played together since 2017. So there's a lot of lads there that have played in that system now 6-7 years at this stage, and then the sprinkling that John does with a couple of young lads or newer lads put in every so often. But the majority of the team have been in that situation of, okay, look, let's just absorb. Like Limerick are incredible at just sitting back, absorbing, and then going forward again and hitting you on the break again, you know, and getting the scores and they need it. So look, they obviously had a good discussion at half time of what exactly was going on. Shawnee probably saw it above in the nest and relayed the information down to the lads. And I suppose when you've got a guy like Paul Kinnork over you as well, Shane, like Paul would have probably sat down at the start of the year and put himself in other coaches' positions and said, right, how'd you beat Limerick? And he's probably rehearsed those scenarios over and over again, you know. So Paul probably had the answers before he even needed to speak to the lads about having the answers, you know. So, and in fairness to them, look, they absorbed it, they went and they upped that intensity.
Yeah. What did you make of it, Naoise? I mean, I'm looking at it there as a Tipperary person, and I'm delighted with the first half. Tipperary are absorbing the hits, they're tackling the right places, they're stick passing when somebody is not swarmed, and they're running it through the lines as well. So to me, I was like, okay, really, really impressive. Just like Barry, I was a little bit like, will Tip keep this up for 70 minutes? And obviously that didn't happen. But what was your read on the whole game?
Yeah, it's funny. Mark Foley kind of called it right at half time, and TG4, where he was saying he like, just from being there as well. Obviously, you're talking about feeling it through the TV. Like he was there on the sideline. Obviously, and he was just said there's no way Tipperary can maintain this. Like, and he said at half time that he felt Limerick would turn it around. Like, so, you know, it is really hard to play like that for a full 70 minutes. And I mean, look at the levels Limerick can get to so quickly. It's kind of strange to look at, and then considering the amount of people that they didn't even have, you know, from their real starting team playing, it's kind of scary. Like, where you're kind of going, well, like, just if we've thrown everything at them in the first half and we're this far ahead, and then they can still turn it around, like, and like I kind of mentioned earlier, I suppose not even turn it around by scoring like three soft goals or you know, deflections or something goes in or a penalty or whatever. It was point. It took over. Like 111 to 2 points. Like that's crazy. And then the goal, you know, Tip and Kilkenny, I suppose, really love, especially backs, a high ball dropping in, and someone like Peter Casey catching the ball over a full back and scoring a goal shouldn't really be, like, traditionally, like, I suppose, let's say Kilkenny and Tipperary lads would be, you know, just sickened with that. So yeah, like it was kind of shocking, but then not surprising either, which kind of sounds stupid. Like, whereas you're kind of like, yeah, this is what they can do, but it's like, I can't believe they're actually doing it again.
So, like, when we watched that game in 2020, the Munster final, the 16-point turnaround and all that, what I couldn't understand at the time was why Tip were waiting so long to make substitutions, why nobody was going down with the old Nicky Quaid, oh, my contact lens isn't, oh no, poor me, let's slow the game up for 2 minutes here. Thought that somebody should have done that, because there's a lot of lads who won the All-Ireland a couple of years ago on the field for Tipperary. You know, you'd think would do that. The other thing is, you look at Tipperary substitutions and they happen in the 51st minute, 56, 65. Barry, should Tipperary not be saying, right, we've seen this a few times now, after about 40 minutes, we really are gassed against Limerick. Maybe we just make multiple substitutions in those central areas, or, you know, in the engine room, and make sure that we're in a position to kind of deal with the amount of energy that Limerick are going to bring to us.
I think we'd say that anyway, Shane. So watched it through telly or been there live. But like, again, as I made a point earlier, I said you don't really know what Liam Cahill and his backroom team are thinking. Like, they might have a guy, the S&C guy there on the GPS watching that and saying, right, these guys they're actually okay still. There's been no drop off. You know, I know other counties have used that in the past where they see a little bit of a drop off and straight away they're pinging, you know, and they're pulling lads. But maybe he wanted to get extra time into lads. You know, maybe he was looking at certain scenarios, looking at certain systems for later on in the year. Who knows? But look, I suppose for us, you'd say, yeah, definitely. Look, lads, you could see lads were starting to get a little bit leggy there. And even in the second half there, like when Limerick lads were bombing off the shoulder, like they just got away. Like, you know, they were tracking runs. I think Bonner Maher, a lad that would never get caught for pace or get caught for a run like that, just got caught by Barry Nash a couple of times, like, you know. So maybe he was just using it to get some game time into lads as well, you know, before the start of the championship. So who knows?
Did you think it was naive for somebody to not go down for a minute or two, take the old helmet off?
Oh, definitely. Look, when you get a run of scores and you're like that, you know, someone has to, somewhere around the field, just to take the sting out of it a little bit. Would it have helped? I don't know. Because look, Limerick are. One thing I'm very impressed with Limerick this year from watching the games. They're quite measured, Shane. They're not. I think the big thing over the last couple of years from all teams in the competition has been get the ball up to that delivery zone. They call it the sweet spot there in the middle of the field and just pass it in. But like, Limerick aren't even given that 60-40 ball anymore in favour. Like, you know, they're working the ball across the field. They're working the ball to the better man in the middle. They're being quite measured and quite reserved in what they're doing. And if they can't get a man off the shoulder, like, they're trying to hold the ball as long as possible to make sure that ball is going in, it's going to stick and it's going over the bar, like, you know. So it's very hard to defend that then as well. So
interesting comment in here from Zed Leplin. He's trying to wind you up, I'd say, Barry. This Limerick team have one All-Ireland left in them, I think, regardless. Over all the 50-50 calls they get, every team is catching you, but eventually traditional counties will come to the top. What do you make of that?
Oh, sure, come here. Look, things are cyclical, Shane. You know, like, this Limerick team isn't going to go on forever. It was the same to the great Kilkenny teams. You know, it's cyclical. It comes in cycles. The Tip teams, the Cork teams through the years. Like, will it run its course? You'd be naive to think that it wouldn't. That, you know, it's going to go on forever. Like Limerick are bringing players through, but look, as I said, there's a puck of a wall between the top counties at the moment, and that's just my honest opinion on it. So,
Cian Lynch was unbelievable again, wasn't he? Like, he's back to top form.
I thought he was incredible, you know, just the way he can take the game by the scruff of the neck. And like, Keane is probably the last person on the field that wants to shoot himself. You know, he's trying to bring other lads into it. He's doing just all that donkey work that, you know, you mightn't see necessarily all the time. But like, he's coming into rucks, getting balls and just popping that ball off and running, being very direct and running direct at lads, you know. So he's probably a guy, you know, after missing a year's hurling last year, especially, you know, it hit him a little bit. I think it's a big year in store for Keane, being honest.
Yeah, and would you, Naoise, I mean, he was unbelievable. Like, he's the best player in the game, really, when he's fit.
Oh, he's class. Like that, you know, the point he got from long range there in the second half when the kind of the flow started coming, when the ball came to him like a rocket, and he did that thing where he used his left hand to make a space and guard the hurl away and just bang into his hand and just swivels around and goes over the bar, like, all in one motion. And you're kind of like, he makes it look so normal, but like, it's so hard to do. And then obviously doing the pickup, he missed one, got called for picking off the ground. And he's like, right, well, give me another chance at this. Like, it was like a minute later, he just bang up into his hand, like, and he's like a puppet master, like Barry's saying there. Like, he doesn't often shoot, but he like 99% of the time takes the right option. Like, he never like hits the ball wide. it's like, right, I'm either going to pass it or it's definitely going over the bar. And then like another thing about Limerick too, like overall in that period when they were on top, it's like it's actually amazing how accurate they are. Like, because some of the shots they take, sometimes you're kind of like, what do you do? And then you're like, oh, score. You know, like I know Seamus Flanagan wasn't playing yesterday, but he does it all the time. This kind of thing where he collects and he's running away from the goal and he leans over his shoulder and bangs, goes up, and you're like, what the hell? Like, how long do you have to be practicing them shots? And then Glenn does it on the other side, off his left hand side. Like, it's incredible. Like, but yeah, Cian Lynch, I love watching him. I love when he's playing. It was kind of annoying last year. I know, like, Limerick beat Kilkenny, but like when you're going to the games, you want to watch Cian Lynch. So I know it's probably sickening for him, like, that he missed it, but like they're the kind of lads you want to watch for as long as possible and as much as possible, because like he's a wizard, as somebody said there. Like,
Barry, were you? I'm trying to remember. Were you on the panel when he just first started coming in, which was probably around 2015?
Yeah, we made our debut together, Shane, which we believe against Clare over in Thurles. So if you got a photo of Cian Lynch then and where he is now, they're like two different people. It's like he's actually after eating the previous Cian Lynch of 2015 to where he is now. Just completely different. He was like a little whippet going around the place then. No, he's just, but he had it all then, Shane. Like, he had it in secondary school. He went to Arts Reach as well, and like you could see it that he was just going to be one of these generational talents. Like,
yeah,
he had that deadly ponytail coming out of the back of his head.
Barry, like, give me your early sort of memories of some of the stuff he would have done, and then even moving on to senior training in recent years. Is he one of these lads who does stuff and everyone just goes, "Oh my God, how did you do that?"
All I know is, Shane, I know I was sitting on the bench anyway, but I would have had no jersey if I was trying to do the things that Keane was doing. I'd have been sitting at home, I'd say, for every game. He's just one of these lads that you'll be saying to yourself, oh, and then you watch him do it and come after it, and you're like, what do you expect, He's got a complete, Naoise said it there, like the skill set, like it's top quality, and what he can do with a hurling the ball for the man that just, even down to his hurleys, he could rock up and use a 36 there at the start of the year, and then he's using a 34 there halfway during the year, and then he's picking up Declan's hurley halfway during the year and using Declan's hurley, or he's asking Nicky to shave a little bit off the corner of this hurley for him, like, I'd say if you gave him a sweeping brush, he'd go out and do the same thing. So.
Oh, and like as a kid, because he was a really talented soccer player as well. Was it Kevin's or someone like that in Dublin had him up at different times or whatever? Like, how good, or do you remember him as a kid hurling, or any highlights?
I know you would have seen it in the schools, and I suppose I was finishing up when he came into our school, but you would have seen it and going to the earlier matches and the Dean Ryans and the Harty Cups, like, and he was just, what he was able to do, like, he was throwing balls over lads' heads, and he had everything, and you knew, like, that this fella was going to make it. And sure, look, I suppose the pedigree he comes from then as well,
Yeah, no surprise there. Barry Nash, though, Naoise, he's really developing into just a ridiculously good player. God,
he was class on Saturday as well. Oh, he was class in the second half, especially. Like, they were kind of, I know Hanlon got man of the match, but I thought, like, I was like, God, he's really been central in turning this, and you could, like, again, like, physically see him pushing everything on and on and on. And he's central in so many things they do, like, because, again, right, he's such a good hurler. And then you bring him back, cornerback, and you think, like, oh God, what's going on here? But, like, you see Saturday as the prime example of what he brings to the team. Like, on any other probably county team, he'd probably be centre back now, like, but because Hannon and the rest of them are so good around, and he fits perfectly into what they're doing. And, like, if there's no option down the field, Nicky Quaid's first call is, right, give it to Barry Nash. He'll do the right thing with it. He's either going to carry it out, draw a man, then pass it, or he's going to carry it to a point where, like Barry was saying, the sweet spot, and then give it into one of the lads inside. Like, he's a lad, he can do it all. But just in a different way, obviously, than Cian Lynch. But he's so good. He's so important to that team. And that's the kind of thing that, like, relating back to Kilkenny there, that I kind of see that they're probably going to try and do the same thing with Pádraig Walsh, because I saw somebody commenting there, maybe that Pádraig Walsh will be under pressure to start. I don't think he will, because he's been brilliant the last couple of matches. And the two of them will be wearing number 4, probably playing a similar role. Their use of the ball is really good. They're brilliant hurlers. But Barry Nash, like, on his day, like, he's as good as you're going to get in the country, really. Like, I mean, it's no accident or mistake that he was up for hurler of the year. Was it last year? Was it? Last year, yeah. Like, I mean, he's brilliant. Like, they're all brilliant. This is the problem. They've got 25 brilliant lads.
And, like, to me now, Nash, he's he's kind of sweeping like and sort of protecting the lads behind him. If there's two behind him, let's say Sean Finn and Mike Casey the other night, but if an attacker comes into his area, then he turns into a marker. Is it sort of like that sort of it's zonal when it needs to be and man marking when it needs to be type setup, Barry, or how do you read it?
They kind of seem to be just playing it as they see it and just reacting to what's happening in front of them. Like even using Declan as an example there, Shane. Like Declan would traditionally probably sit a little bit in a lot of games, but even there in the second half, like when he needed to push up, like he forced a turnover in the middle of the field. I think he was on the other 65 even, which will go against everything Limerick were probably doing the last maybe 4 or 5 years. Spoiled the ball, stayed up around there, ended up getting a score off it, you know. And it was the same with Barry. Like Barry reset when he needed to reset, when they needed to go 15 on 15, he just slapped back in and find the closest man to him. And then as the game probably evolved in a little bit again, go back to whatever system that they were trying to operate at that time. So
Shane Dowling showed last night Mike Casey bombing on from the back a few times. Of course, Barry Nash, very obviously. Like that's the new thing now, very much like, I'm not saying Gaelic football, but obviously Gaelic football backs, they do go or whatever, but there's less risk in Gaelic football because the ball can't just be popped like in 2 seconds. It gets to the other end of the field if you move out. In hurling, obviously, it can be. But it seems to be that risk-reward thing with Limerick now. They trust that I can go as a full-back because the lads who are winning the ball somewhere in the middle sector or in the half-back line, they've such good skill sets, they'll get it to me and it won't break down, Barry.
Yeah, I think it goes back to Paul's coach and maybe Shane and the freedom that he's given lads to go and hurl and express themselves and not be robotic and have to play to this strict system that you have to do this. That if a lad sees space in front of him in green grass, you're going to go and support the play as much as possible. You know, and I think equally I saw a couple of times that said when Mike came out there or Barry came out, like if he passed Dermot or passed Colin Coughlin, like they were automatically going, right, okay, let's just retreat back here a little bit and let's just cover. So like that Limerick, again, it comes back to them playing together for so long that like it's a system. Lads know automatically what they're doing. They're working in unison together. They're attacking together. They're defending together. You know, so and I think that's, as I said, that's an advantage Limerick have, that they're just so comfortable playing with each other for so long that they nearly know what they're doing now before they even done it. You know, another lad knows what's going on before another lad has even done something. So.
Naoise, do you reckon that Will O'Donoghue and Alan Tynan, that little schmozzle that they had there, that there could be anything from that in terms of disciplinary action?
Well, you wouldn't know, I suppose, that they did it in Kyle Hay, so you presume now once you do it once, you have to do it all the time. So this is the thing, is like this is always the biggest problem, like with reffing, I suppose. Now, refs are definitely better than they used to be, like, and all, like, but this is the biggest problem with reffing, is like inconsistent. Like, so if you've done
it's actually an impossible game to referee if you think about it. There's 30 lads all trying to get an edge on each other.
But this is the thing, and it moves so fast. Like, so Richie Hogan got a belt off the ball there. He ended up getting taken off probably maybe a little minute later. I didn't see what happened. Nobody seems to see what happened to him. He was just on the ground, and the ball was on the far side of the field, like, because everyone's following the play. So, but like, this is the thing. So, what if it was caught on camera? Like, it has to be looked at, I suppose, because if you're going to do it once, you have to do it every time. Like, you either ignore it all the time or you follow it up all the time. It can't be, we'll pick this instant and then we'll pick this one, but we won't bother with that one. We won't bother with that one either. Like, you have to look at them all. Like, so I presume they'll look at it, and if they see something like that, they'll be in trouble. Like,
but when you look at the likes of Barry Murphy, the performance he gave, Barry, like, and Darragh O'Donovan to come back in as well, Limerick aren't too badly off, even if Will O'Donoghue does end up suspended.
No, look, I think there's the depth is there in the panel, and like you've Adam English there as well, Shane. You know, you've three doing lads there fighting for that one spot in the middle of the field, and you know, in fairness to Barry, like similar to Barry Nash and maybe to a couple of lads that have reinvented themselves out around the middle there, gives you something very similar in terms of a skill set that Darragh has. But look, William's a unique player too. Like, you know, he's any team that he's in, and if he wasn't in it, you're going to miss him there. But look, they'll find someone to go in there, I suppose.
Here's the oddest stat of the match. In the second half, Barry, Limerick had 0 wides. Ronan Maher had 2, and Tipperary otherwise had none as well. Have you ever come across a stat like that?
No, but it just goes back to my point about just like Limerick aren't taking on things that they don't need to take on. Like, they're being so measured in what they're doing in terms of their build-up play, making sure it's nearly like international soccer where they're nearly wearing you down. You know, they're switching ball across the field, working ball to the middle. Is it on to go forward with the line break? Okay, it's not. We'll go to the other side of the field now. And they're making sure that when that pass goes in there, that it's going to stick and it's going to be a score. Like that's what I've been incredibly impressed with. Like, it's like a new dimension to their game. You know, it's not just trying to break that gain line of the 45 anymore, but just absolute robust runners and 1 and 2 off runners. They're being really, really measured in what they're doing and where they're delivering the ball from and where they're shooting from, especially. You know, it's very rare that you see, unless situation dictates, but it's very rare you see a Limerick player shooting from outside the 65, unless they're Dermot, you know, or Colin Coughlin as well. Even Declan is taking that ball past the halfway line into the 65 and making sure that it's going over the bar. Like,
yeah, like Colin Coughlin's mishit shot led to the goal. Like last year, I was involved with the UCD freshers against the UL freshers, and oh my God, Colin Coughlin with 4 points from playing the first half. He's some shooter, to be fair to him. One other thing I wanted to ask you, Barry, was to do with like, you know, the commitment. I would imagine the commitment of all intercounty players is huge. But like, you know, if you have a Limerick training session at 7:30, we'll say on a Tuesday or something like that, what time are lads there? I presume they're all doing their own work beforehand, out poking away and getting in extra shooting work or whatever.
Yeah, look, John actually kind of put a stop to that over the years, and that lads were nearly getting there too early and doing too much before training, that they nearly were out in the field an hour. Well, the goalies were always out earlier anyway, but no, look, lads that have pre-session work to do, whether you're a forward or a back or whatever, and you kind of spend 20 minutes before the session doing your whatever little bits you had to do before the main session started, you know. So in fairness, it's incredibly laid back to what it was when I first came onto county panels. You know, I was very regimental, very tight, you know, very, very strict, where you felt you were just constantly wound up, to where now it's just so relaxed. And I think you can really see it in the Limerick team, especially that lads are enjoying each other's company and they're enjoying what they're doing as well. You know, they're going around, if you're in opposition player there and you're watching Cian Lynch go around and smile in his face, it's going to just annoy you for the whole 60, 70 minutes, you know. So
just before I let you go, Barry, how do you think the league final will go? And then the second thing I'm going to ask you is, who are the 3 teams that are going to come out in Munster? But starting off with the league final.
I'm going to have to say Limerick, or the Limerick win. And I do think it'll be a lot closer, Cian. I know you're probably sick of me saying this already this morning, but I do think that the teams are getting a lot closer. You know, there isn't that much of a gap that there is anymore. So, and I think it will be highly competitive, being honest with you. And again, the 2 weeks, you probably have the last week of hard training that you have before championship this week. So again, what's going on behind closed doors, no one really knows, and how teams are going to treat it. Like, it's still a national competition, obviously, with a medal and a trophy at the end of it. So obviously teams will give it the respect. But I'm hoping for Limerick win anyway.
Yeah, and then that final one, the tricky one, who's coming out of Munster?
It's very tricky. I think Naoise said something really interesting a while ago. I do think that Waterford are going to be a completely different team to what they were in the league. There's always a bit of a bounce from a Davy team, especially. So Clare again, I don't know. I think people are reading too much to what was going on in Clare. Like, they're extremely quiet at the moment. There's no stories coming out of there. Normally you'd hear something. Limerick will come out of it. I do fancy Tip to come out of it as well. And I do think it's going to be a toss of a kind in between Waterford and Clare.
So you're kind of hedging your bets a little bit, and you're saying that Cork won't come out.
I don't know. I just
that's a no.
There's still a bit of a question mark there. I have to say Tipperary now, Shane, because there's family ties with Tip, so I have to say that, or that side of the family, I'll be lynched. So but I do like the style of play that Liam has instilled in over there. Like, you know, they're hurling really well at the moment. But I do think it's a toss of a kind for a third spot. Any team in their day, you know, could get, like, Waterford probably going to Thurles might stand against them, even though they're all saying they love playing in Thurles, you know. Squad depth, Jen, will be a big thing. You know, unfortunately, that Waterford have traditionally suffered a couple of injuries in the group stages of the Munster Championship over the years that have probably hampered their progress. So if they can keep lads healthy, I'd like to think that they come through it. But again, I don't know.
Yeah, so TV Street says all the girls have lovely bottoms, basically, is what Barry Hennessy is saying.
more water, I think, was Father Jack's present, but more water.
Thank you very much, Barry. Great having you on the show, and we'll be chatting again hopefully soon.
Thanks, lads. Okay,
brilliant to have Barry Hennessy on there. Multiple All-Irelands in the back pocket for him. Who do you think is coming out of Munster this year?
Limerick. And it depends on Waterford. Do have a good few injuries now. But if they had a full team, I'd say Waterford, Limerick, Waterford, and then I don't know what to make of Tip or Cork yet, because Tip obviously were probably playing the best in the league, like, But then it's like, are they playing too well too early? You know, this whole thing again, like kind of similar to Waterford last year. They blitzed, like they were unreal in the league, and then just fell flat in the championship. So, is that happening to Tip? And then, so I don't know. And then Cork, after looking at them yesterday, I didn't know what to make of Cork at all. It's kind of hard, like, because we've seen so many times now as well where like a team just like jumps like up like 25-50% from how good they were in the league to the championship, and then like a few of them have like a nice little break between now and the championship, so they can prepare properly, get everyone back. Like that's probably what Waterford are happier with, rather than getting to a league final, say, and like Mikey Kiley is injured, Prunty is injured, Gleeson is injured. So yeah, look, you'd need. I think if they get all them back and they have a full squad, it'll be Limerick and Waterford, and then I don't know. I actually don't know. Too hard to tell between the others, like.
Yeah. So there's a comment in here from PWell74, who's a Limerick man. Kilkenny don't fear anyone, and why should they with their history? And One Stop Auto says, of course Kilkenny fear Limerick. Now, you are a Lactons man. You are a Kilkenny man. Do you fear Limerick in their current guise?
Fear? No, you don't fear anyone. If you feared anyone, you wouldn't talk out.
I can see it in your eyes. You're terrified.
The context. Like if you feared anyone, you wouldn't talk out. Like that's the thing. If you were afraid, you wouldn't bother turning up. Like, are they better than them? Yes. Like they're whatever. What is it? Forward last 5 All Irelands or whatever it is. Like they've a serious team. Like, and Kilkenny went blow for blow with them last year in the All Ireland final. Now the league final will be completely different. Obviously, it'll be two totally different teams, you would think. But fear them? No, they don't fear them. Why would they fear them? Why would they? So they don't. You said fear them.
So I suppose, what did I want to ask you? Yeah, like who else outside? You'll definitely say Kilkenny to come out of Leinster this year. Who do you think are the other 2 teams going to come out?
Well, Dublin and Galway, I'd say. I
You're
think
not
Wexford
backing
could be under. I think they could be under pressure. Now I know they kind of had a very, very different attitude towards the league this year. That Barry Egan even said, like before the first league game, he was like, "No, look, we won 5 out of 5 last year. What good did it do us? And this year we're trying to build a team, build a squad, and we're going to have be a different team every single game of the league, and just get ready for championship." Basically, is what he said. So, and again, if they have a fully fit team, I think it's between kind of them. Like, Leinster, you're trying to get 4 teams, into 3, obviously, and it's kind of always a bit of a coin toss between Dublin and Wexford. And I just think Dublin, well, based on the league, Dublin are a little bit ahead of Wexford, I thought, anyway. So
yeah,
right
Wexford
now,
have a huge amount of injuries as well.
This is it, like.
Everyone.
This is it, like. Yeah, like this is it, like. So right now, I'd be picking Kilkenny, Galway, and Dublin.
Okay, so Westmeath beat Laois in the Division 1 relegation playoff 324 to 126. Killian Doyle scored 11 points there. Joey Boyle 1-2. Owen Keys, I should say, 1-1. Kieran Doyle 4. Niall O'Brien a goal for Laois. Picky Maher scored 8.7 frees. James Keys with 5. Enda Rowland scored a free towards the end. And several other players scored either 1 or 2 points as well. Now, you and I have both been managed in the past by Willie Maher at Coola as well. So it'd be a very disappointing one for him to go down. And Joe Fortune, I think, will be very, very happy to see his Westmeath team survive. They went up last year after beating down in that promotion playoff at Semple Stadium. Maybe even just playing there and having a positive day out there last year stood to them in this match. But geez, that's a huge one for Westmeath.
Oh yeah, because it's similar to Antrim as well. Remember Owen O'Neill said it last year that the most important thing for Antrim probably last year was that to maintain Division 1 status and keep playing and performing and training for that level. Westmeath, very same. Like especially coming up and staying up is always huge. There's a bonus that you've had a season of a bit of a wake up to see what the standard is like, and now you can properly prepare for it again next year, knowing, yeah, look, we're safe here now again. Depends on who's coming up. Who comes up from Division 2, they'll be hoping, I suppose, to stay up another year. But yeah, that's a huge win for Joe Fortune and for Westmeath, like, because again, to maintain Division 1 status. And Laois, what was it, 3 years ago or however long ago, they were in All Ireland quarter final. Like they're it's not exactly a bad team with bad hurlers or anything, so like that's a huge win for Westmeath.
Yeah, and they'll have to bounce back quickly because Laois are facing Offaly in a couple of weeks' time in the Joe McDonagh Cup. So they've no time to feel sorry for themselves. But the trouble for Offaly, of course, is after beating Kerry 23 points to 19 in the Division 2A semi-final, they have to play Kildare in the meantime in that promotion clash. So it's very difficult for Offaly, whereas Laois can come along, watch that final in 2A and sort of plan for what they're going to meet against Offaly.
Yeah, depending on how that final goes, I suppose, because say if Offaly win, they could be on a big high and brilliant, great, and they go in. Whereas Laois are kind of thinking like, we're down in this now next year. Jeez, I can't believe we've gone down and played this next year, kind of a thing. Like, right, and that's just the feeling you get when you get relegated. I suppose that it's fairly sickening. So depending on how they react to the relegation, that'll kind of determine how that match goes, really. Because again, like, it's like two teams are going opposite directions. That like Offaly are going on the way up. They're trying to get promoted, whereas Laois are just getting beaten, week after week. So yeah, that'd be an interesting game. The turnaround, I just think the turnaround is too quick. In general, that's why I'd say the like of Waterford had no real issue with being knocked out of the league as early as they were. They're just kind of right, okay, let's get ready for championship kind of thing. Whereas obviously everybody wants to win a league, wants to get promoted, wants to get up, once it gets to that stage. But I'm fairly sure you give someone the option, they'd want to be getting 2 or 3 weeks of training before the championship. Like,
yeah, so a big win for Offaly because they weren't great in the first half before winning by 4. And I saw Damien Stack writing about Kerry saying for the second week in a row, they had 22 missed scoring opportunities. For the second week in a row, their conversion rate was under 50%. At this level, that just won't do. So from an Offaly point of view, Owen Cahill, he scored 13 points, 12 of those were placed balls. David Nally scored 3. Paddy Clancy was one of the players who'd scored a point each. Shane Conway scored 4 frees. Jordan Conway scored a couple, and Pádraig Boyle, he scored 7 points from frees and another one from play. Like, Kerry have shown some really good stuff in the last couple of years. I'd say that'll be a bit deflating.
Yeah, and it's one of them things like with Kerry where they're always like kind of this close. Like, they're always just that close. They're right there. And then the problem is, like, same as any team at any level, the window is only open for so long, and you want to make the most of it while you can, even if it is only one promotion. Like, if they could get up into Division 1 once for 1 year, like, wouldn't it be brilliant? Like, if they could get into the Munster Championship, even for 1 year again, like, wouldn't it be brilliant? Like, that, it would really justify all the hard work, because, like, again, they have so many skillful, like, proper hurlers, like, but it's just that they're just that step off, but that 50% conversion rate, like, even, like, not trying to, again, like, insult anyone, but even at junior club level at this stage, like, the stats and stuff are so important. 50% is so far off what you need to be doing, converting to be winning any game.
Pádraig Gill says, "Our tip still team of the league?" Don't think I ever said they were team of the league. I always said they were in the side that had less of the big guns. Mike Doyle says, "Call it, lad. Who's winning the league final? Limerick."
Limerick probably, yeah. But it depends on what kind of a team Kilkenny have out. Like, they could have a completely different team as they had yesterday. Completely different. So hard to know. But Limerick right now, you'd be saying Limerick, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'll just run through some of the results in the other divisions. Donegal beat Wicklow, so that means Donegal are going to end up in the promotion clash against Meath. Armagh and Roscommon they'll meet in a promotion decider, as will Leitrim and Cavan. That's because Armagh beat Monaghan in the 3A semi-final and Leitrim beat Longford. Did you catch a look at the Clare Tipperary under-20 match there on Saturday? It finished 20 points apiece. Patrick Crotty with a late leveller.
No, I actually missed it. I was busy. I was busy doing stuff at home here and getting ready for other things that I have to prepare for.
Grips on new hurleys, weren't you?
No, I was getting hurls to bring him across, all right, and trying to pack for next weekend for the big trip. Next weekend.
He's heading to Montana to do a bit of a wedding shindig, which I'll be going to as well.
A bit of a wedding shindig, yeah. Tying the knot, yeah. So I was busy there. I missed that one. I just saw a few highlights of what happened and all.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm going to touch on that a little bit later. Naoise, I'm going to let you go, so thanks very much, and we'll chat to you again soon.
Sound. Thanks. Good luck.
Okay, well, delighted to say we're joined now by Paddy Keenan, Louth's one and only All-Star. Paddy, how are things with you?
Not so bad, lads. Not so bad. How's the form?
Not too bad. Did you have a good old weekend watching the football?
We were up in Croke Park yesterday, all right. So the throat might be a little bit hoarse this morning, but no, good to get up at Croke Park and have a crack at it. And look, the result wasn't what we wanted, but look, at least we were there. We had something to play for.
Yeah, so it finished Dublin 16 points, Louth 1-6. But the amount of goal chances that Louth had through the game, it just showed that they really can compete against top sides, which go back 2 or 3 years ago, you wouldn't really have been saying that.
No, and even being honest, I think most people around the county at the start of this year, you were expecting it was going to be a dead rubber game towards the end. Playing Dublin Croke Park, the last game of the league, you didn't think you'd anything to play for, but you have to give the county board, the players, the management, the backroom, like huge amount of credit and huge kudos in fairness to them, because as I said, nobody expected to be where we were yesterday. We gave ourselves a fighting chance. We were well in it, particularly in the first half, and the Colin McKeever goal chance that hit the post. If that had went to 2 inches to the right, it might be a different ball game. But no, I think we'd take a lot of heart out of the league. We learned a lot. I know the rumours within the panel was that they were pushing for promotion from sort of the Meath game. So, it wasn't a surprise to them. And it's great that they're in that sort of mentality, that they're looking at Division 1, they're looking at promotion, they're looking at, now into a Leinster Championship. And it gives a great boost around the county now, in fairness to them.
And as much as you mightn't have been expecting Louth to be in a league final at the start of the year, in going into this match with the hope of a league final, we wouldn't have been expecting Stephen Cluxton to be tugged out for Dublin either, would we?
No, big surprise. And even before the game, there was a lot of talk about it, and I think with a sense of disbelief, to be honest, around the crowd. There was photos and WhatsApps and all sorts going around before the game, but look, he's one of the greatest of all time, and he's not coming back to just be part of a panel and sit on the bench and watch the game from the sideline. He's going to be pushing for a start and pushing to raise the standards and push to win in All Ireland ultimately.
Yeah, we will come back to Louth in a second, but just to tease this out a little bit more, it's a tough one now, I think, for David O'Hanlon, because to be sort of like a groundswell towards, geez, we'll get Cluxton back into goals here. People are almost waiting for David O'Hanlon, who's done well, to make a mistake. Now, my information is that it's not like Cluxton begged to come back. It's not like Farrell begged him to come back either. But like, he's not going to come back to sit on the bench. He won't want that.
No, not at all. Like, Cluxton's not a man, from any dealings I ever had with him, or from looking in from the outside, he's not a man that's going to make a big deal out of it or go to media or shout from the rooftops about it. He'll do his work in the background. The players will all want him there because he is one of the greatest of all time, probably the greatest goalkeeper in history. But you're right, it's tough for the keeper that's there, because he's a hungry dude. He's going to want to win All Ireland. He's going to want to get a spot. He's going to want to be playing, and that's ultimately what you want as a manager and as a team. But it's going to put a bit of pressure on Hanlon there as it is.
Yeah. So when Liam Jackson got that goal, I think that brought it back to 10 points to 1-4. So like, it had been a 6-point lead, cut it in half there. Did you kind of think, right, we have a bit of a chance here now?
Absolutely, yeah. And the goal was fantastic. To put the ball in from Tom Jackson was absolutely class. It was probably one of the real decisive kind of passes that was kicked in the game. The style of football that we play is probably not the easiest on the eye, I suppose, but it was probably the one real true ball, real thread the eye of the needle sort of pass that was kicked throughout the whole game from our side anyway. And geez, a beautiful pass, and in fairness, Liam had finished it very well. Yeah, we're very much in the game, and we missed another goal chance. I think it was nearly cleared off the line. I think maybe Hanlon might have got a toe to it, then maybe around the same time. And yeah, it's just a bit of what ifs. If certain things went our way, you might have been a bit closer. But look, that's ifs and buts and all the rest. But we were in it. It gave us a shooting chance. We probably didn't start the second half all that well. We played probably fairly strong in the first half. In the first probably 10 minutes of the second half, we were a little bit sloppy and maybe got dispossessed a few times coming out of defence and that sort of thing. But look, it got us back into the game and gave us a shouting chance. And just unfortunately, we didn't get that second goal that we probably needed.
And to do all of this without Sam Mulroy and Kieran Byrne, I mean, that really speaks to the depth that Louth now have.
Huge. Like as I said, you have to give them massive credit, and even the nature in the other games that the style that we've won those games. The Kildare game, was tight enough, but probably looked fairly comfortable. Meath coming back from the dead, Cork coming back from the dead, and there's not too many Louth teams that have done that in the last, and even in my time in the last 20 years, there's not too many Louth teams that have. When you were losing 2 or 3 points in the last 5 or 10 minutes, you were coming back and winning those sort of games. It tended, unfortunately, to be the other way around. So it's great to see that character and a bit of fighting spirit, and that they can pull a game or pull a result out of the fire. So look, as I said, it's huge credit. We're a small county. We don't have a massive pick, and we've blooded a lot of new young lads in, and we've created a bit of depth in the panel. And you just know by watching the team, they're drilled very well, they're trained very well, and the players, in fairness, are very much buying into the methodology of Gavin and Mickey.
Yeah, and talk to us about Mickey and the impact that he's having and what you're here.
Look, where we were 2, 3, 4 years ago, to be where we're at now, to even be talking about competing with Dublin, to even be talking about being, having a chance at Division 1 is, you wouldn't have dreamed about that 2 or 3, 4 years ago. You have to give massive credit, and you have to give massive credit to Peter Fitzpatrick and the county board there for getting the lads in and having the vision to go and get them, and give them everything that they need and want to kind of perform at that level. And then obviously you have to give the players massive credit, because they're buying into it, and they're doing savage work, serious work, in fairness to them. And you'd hear that from the rumours around the panel and talking to lads from that are involved in the panel or around the panel, and you know that the work is being done, and they're taking it really seriously. But the coaching that's been done with them, the standards that they're setting from a management team, you have to admire it. And I'd probably love to be in that, playing in that sort of environment where you have such high standards and high expectations, and thankfully the players are responding to it.
Yeah, I'm looking at the draw then for the Leinster Championship, and of course, quarterfinal is the first outing for Mickey Hart and the Louth team. That's against Westmeath. Then in the other semi-final, it's going to be the winner of Longford and Offaly against Meath. And potentially, let's say Louth were to do what it looks like they could be potentially doing this year, which is get to a provincial final. Dublin are on the other side. Do you feel like Louth can go into this with huge momentum now and feel like, well, maybe we're right there as the second best Leinster team at the moment, and we've proven that we can give Dublin a game?
Absolutely. There's no reason why not. At the same time, we're we haven't been there all that often in the last 50, 60 years. So, you can't take it for granted. You still have to earn your place at the table. And I know that I can Mickey and Gavin, they're not going to be looking at Leinster finals just yet. They're going to be just focused on Westmeath and Westmeath only, and that's it. They're going to be very professional about it. The players will be very professional about it, and they're not going to look past anybody. Like Westmeath are a good team. They probably haven't performed in Division 3 the way they would have liked. I'm sure they would have targeted promotion there, and I'm sure they're annoyed with themselves over not getting up to Division 2, but they're still a good team. They've a good, strong panel. They've been around the place for the last 2 or 3 years. They've won the Tottenham Cup last year, so they have a bit of momentum behind themselves. But at the same time, we've shown that we can compete with the Derrys, the Dublins, the Corks. So why can't you have a crack at it?
Because obviously since 2010, it just going back there, it just hasn't felt like it's, it just hasn't seemed likely, has it?
No, and probably I'd say that 2010 Leicester final probably set the county back a number of years, in that possibly had won that, it would have raised a lot of boats, and would have given you a lift on the age and everything else, and we just never got that kind of bounce. And being in Louth, you have 2 strong soccer towns. Dundalk was very successful in that period, where Louth had a bit of a lull after the 2010, and that probably hampered us as well, in that a lot of young guys, underage, were probably looking at the Dundalk and Champions League and that sort of thing, as opposed to maybe looking at Louth GAA. And even the likes of having the stadium coming on board, being in Division 2, competing with Dublin, having a crack at Leinster now. You definitely, certainly yesterday, even before the game, there was a good buzz about the place. There was a you know, a lot more positivity around the Louth team than, you know, probably since 2010, to be honest with you. So hopefully we can capitalise on that, have a good run at maybe Leinster in the Championship, and, you know, looking at the Division 2 next year, which is going to be tough, and hopefully you can stay at that level and hopefully progress into Division 1. But there's certainly a huge amount of positivity around the place, and again, we're all jumping on the bandwagon, and hopefully that will continue.
And like, does that 2010 final cross your mind much these days, or is it one of those things that was probably driving you nuts at the time, and, you know, infamous game and all that, and you just don't think about it anymore?
Look, it comes up now and again. Nearly no matter who you're talking to from around the county or whatever, somebody will mention it. So you'll probably never be allowed to forget about it. But it's probably, to me, it's probably more the opportunity that was lost. As I said, the 10 years after that, we probably hit a bit of a lull, and we were just never able to maintain the standards that, you know, we kind of wanted to set, and the results didn't go away, and, you know, we slipped down to Division 4. So we were in probably a bad place as a county. But look, I think we have to put that to bed and just move on. And, you know, it's a different generation, it's a different team, it's a different management group. You know, all those players that are playing now have nothing to do with 2010. So, you know, they're writing their own chapter in the Louth book, if you like. And look, let's see where it goes. We'll all give them all the support that we can give, and we'll all be behind them, because, as I said, there is a huge amount of positivity. There is a bit of goodwill about the place that hasn't been there over the last few years. So let's just see where it takes us. It's a great time to be involved, or a great time to be supporting Louth.
So I was looking back at an article, some interview you did a few years ago, and it was like you retired in 2014, age 29, and you kind of wished that you kept it going a little bit longer. But it was work that got in the way, was it?
Well, probably, I suppose there's a number of factors. Old injuries and things like that. I would have done a bad shoulder injury, a bad back injury, groins, things like that, and doing a lot of travelling at work at the time. I was working between Dublin and Cork, and being up and Louth, that's a fair old spin. We were after getting, I think in 2014, we were in Division 2, we got relegated back to Division 3, and, you know, I was looking at the time you'd need to put into it, the toll on the body and everything else, to ultimately be playing Division 3, and at that stage of my career, I kind of wanted to be playing at a higher level, and I knew the work I had to do just to get the body right, to get onto the field, never mind to be playing at a high level and to be competing and all the rest. And look, I ultimately just made the decision. I wanted to kind of see it, have a good run at the club, because we had a very strong club team at the time. I didn't want to be absolutely crippled. You know, my last few years playing with the club, I want to give that a good crack. And look, thankfully that went well. We won a few championships and all the rest. But it's being a county footballer is tough going, and it's tougher now even when I finished, and that's why I have huge time and admiration and respect for any county player, and I'm looking and hearing about the work that the Louth boys are doing at the minute, and I'm delighted that they're getting some rewards for it, because, you know, we've been down in Division 3s and Division 4s and putting the work in and not getting the results, and, you know, thankfully those boys are seeing some benefit out of the work they're putting in.
Yeah, and I suppose more broadly in terms of like the All-Ireland challengers this year, like Mayo and Galway, they're going to be in league final. Galway had a great win over Kerry yesterday. Mayo didn't need a result against Monaghan, and they didn't get it. Of course, Monaghan stayed up because they beat Mayo, and there was other results. Tyrone beating Armagh. Armagh are gone. But I presume you didn't get a chance to watch the game because you were up in Dublin. Maybe you saw some of the highlights, but like Galway and Kerry, do you see them being at probably the big dance later on this year, or certainly getting very far? Oh, I think I might have lost Paddy there. So yeah, I think I've lost him. But hopefully he'll just click back on there. But I'll just go through some of the other results from yesterday. Galway won 13, Kerry 14 points. Last year when they met in the All-Ireland final, it was very much the Clifford versus Shane Walsh show, but it wasn't really that here. It was interesting that, and again, this maybe comes back to the whole topic of, have the Cliffords been brought back too soon, because they're both absolutely brilliant players. But David, a few times in the first half, had very, I suppose, uncharacteristic wides. He also spilled a couple of possessions now and again. He still did set up several scoring chances and had a big impact on the game, but it just wasn't really him. So you just wonder, did they bring him back too quickly after his extended season with Fossa? still in all, Kerry could have levelled the game late on. There was that shot that Sean O'Shea had that was snuffed out by Bernard Power. But it's hard to know. Would you call it a mistake from Shane Murphy that he went back off the crossbar, or the post, I should say, and spilled the ball into the net when Paul Conroy had dropped one into the area in the first half? But either way, that was a big part of what decided the match. And there's a few lads like from Galway, the likes of Matthew Tierney, Tom O'Callaghan is coming in, Cathal Sweeney's there. They have more and more players that are sort of adding to it this year. And I just wonder, will Galway be pushing all the way back to the latter stages once more? And are Kerry getting any way concerned? Paddy, I think, is back online there. Sorry, Paddy, you frozen me for a moment.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. Must have been the internet. Yeah. Apologies on that. It's a Monday morning.
No bother at all. Did you get an opportunity? I presume you didn't get an opportunity to see Galway and Kerry yesterday because you were up at Croke Park. But like Galway and Kerry, do you expect to see them in the latter stages of the championship again this year?
You'd have to expect that they're going to be thereabouts. But it's an open championship, I think, this year. I think, you know, you're looking at Dublin and Derry from Division 2 are going to have a say in it. They're going to be thereabouts. You know, people are writing off Dublin and maybe saying they're not going to be there. You know, they're not the team to wear, and maybe they're not, but always going to be there. You know, even if the likes of the Armaghs, the Roscommons, obviously Mayo, I think, you know, have probably surprised a lot of people with some of the players that they've lost and how they're performing so far. So I think, you know, there's probably 7-8 teams that, you know, once they get through maybe the group stages and into kind of quarterfinal, semi-final stage, I think they'll all fancy their chances of having a cut at it. But you'd probably say Kerry and Galway are probably the two that are probably the front runners at the minute.
I've got a private message here from Johnny McGee, former Dublin footballer, saying, "Ask Paddy, has he hung up the boots fully? Asking for a few Pats lads."
Johnny's overall club team at home, all right. So I think the boots are in the drawer somewhere at home. But maybe a bit of junior football maybe when the summer comes around. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Have you been impressed with Mayo this year, or how much do you read into their positive performances?
I'd be hugely impressed with them, to be honest with you. I think the style of football they're playing is probably one of the most attractive teams at the minute. I think having a set position for Aidan O'Shea is probably helping him and helping the team. You know, get the ball into him. You know, he'll cause havoc. He's a big man to stop. And then if you have runners like a Dermot Connor and lads like that coming off the shoulder and coming from deep, like Mayo always have, in fairness to them, you know, I think they're going to be tough to beat. You know, they may not be the team that they were, you know, towards the latter stages of the 2010s, but I still think they're going to have a say in it, and I think they have a lot to be encouraged by, and I think they'll be hopeful of having a crack at it.
Yeah, is there any obvious All-Ireland winner for you this year? It feels more open than ever.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's clear. You know, Kerry, you know, just based on obviously last year, and the forwards that they have, you know, any team that has like a Clifford and O'Shea and lads like that, or, you know, it's hard to look past them. But, you know, they probably haven't clicked yet, and maybe that's a bit to do with the Cliffords being late to come back into the panel and things like that, and, you know, maybe a bit of a hangover from winning All Ireland. But I still think they're going to be hard to beat, but I don't think they're invincible. You know, I think defensively they could probably be got at if you have the right setup and the right team. You know, the likes of Galway. You know, if you have Comer and Walsh and a couple of the other bit part players, you know, firing on all cylinders against Kerry, you know, they're going to take a lot of handling. And even I think Mayo don't fear playing Kerry. I think they'll have a proper cut at them if they come up against them. And then obviously the Dubs are going to be thereabouts, you know. Again, they're not clicking, but they know what they're doing. They have the players, they have the experience, they have the quality. It's just a matter of that coming together for them. And then, you know, looking at Derry as well, you know, they're going to learn from last year. So I don't think there's an outright favourite or an obvious winner. I genuinely think, depending on, you know, the setups and the way the fixtures work in kind of quarterfinal, semi-final stages, you know, anybody can beat anybody on the day. It's just a matter of clicking form at the right time.
And Tyrone then, they had a good win over Armagh. At times earlier this year, you're wondering where Tyrone were going, especially because their defence of the All-Ireland last year, was poor enough, but they're not out of the mix either, are they?
No, they're going to be thereabouts, and I never mentioned them, and I actually said it over the last couple of weeks that they'll probably have a bit of a say in it. Whether they're at the same level of a Kerry, a Galway, remains to be seen. Probably last year was a real hangover for them, and I'm sure they won't be impressed, and the fans won't be impressed. They won't be happy with the standards they would have set over the last whatever 5 or 10 years, and then to put up that showing last year would stick in the craw. But they're probably hitting a bit of form at the right time. Nothing's won in March at the end of the day. They've the season in front of them now at this stage, and if they get another couple of results under the belt, obviously Ulster's going to be tough. But I think if they click into gear and have their big players kind of performing, which didn't happen last year, they're going to give the likes of the Armaghs, the Derrys, their fill of it in Ulster, and then after that, I think it's anybody's game once you get into the All Ireland series.
Roscommon beat Donegal 21 points to 9, and for Mark McHugh, being part of a Roscommon setup that relegated his native county, he said it's a bittersweet day for Donegal, man. You don't ever want to see Donegal like that. Fortunately, that's just the way it is. You moved out of the county, and you might expect to come up against, your former club or county. I didn't enjoy the day. I didn't enjoy being against some of my club mates there. Brian O'Donnell and Paddy McBearty were there today. It's not easy, but you do a professional job and it's part of the gig. But I would hope it wouldn't happen again. Do you see Roscommon as being a serious team going into the championship this year? We had Davy Burke on the show a lot last year, and he seems like he knows the game inside out.
I think they could be the 23 Derry team, maybe coming a little bit under the radar, and Connacht is relatively open. Obviously the draw is going to be tough on one side of it. I think Mayo, Galway and Roscommon, I think on one side of the draw, so that's going to be a slaughterhouse on that side of the draw, and you're going to have possibly a Leitrim or a Sligo. Like those teams are going to be really eyeing up, and they're going to be looking at taking a scalp. But Roscommon, I think they have a nice balance to the way they play. They can run it when they need to. They can kick it. They've pace around the team. They've a few big men. They've a nice style of play, and I think, but again, rumours around the place. The players seem to be really buying into Davy Burke, and a new manager coming in there, giving a bit of a lift and a bit of a boost. Seems to be working for them, and I certainly wouldn't rule them out now. Yeah.
Yeah, and a final thing in terms of the games over the weekend, Kildare beat Meath 13 points to 8 to ensure that they finish 5th. And if there is a situation with the Tailteann Cup, and one of the, obviously depending on league positions and who gets provincial finals and all that, it could be crucial to send Meath into the Tailteann Cup. But in terms of Louth, have played against both of these teams this year as well. Where do you think Kildare and Meath are at? Because they really should be challenging strongly in Leinster given their populations.
Yeah, you'd wonder kind of what's happening, because for the last 20 years, the population boom alone in both of those counties, on the borders of Dublin, you'd wonder where it's possibly going wrong. And look, we're the same here in this county as well. We would have, we're not a million miles away from Dublin. We're a commuter town or a commuter county. We've been in the doldrums for quite a bit, but with the history that those two counties have, the culture of football, the populations, they really should be performing at a higher level. Probably Kildare are probably the most disappointing team probably in the league across the 4 divisions, in that there probably would have been a fair bit of expectation around them. And it's strange because they have the players, they've quality players around the place and on the bench, and looking in from the outside, they probably have as good a backroom team and management team that, if you were cherry picking them within Kildare, they're probably the men that you'd be looking at. So I don't know if just something's not clicking. Maybe it's starting to come together now. They've obviously 2 wins on the bounce there, and they've kept themselves up. That's going to be a bit of a warning for other counties. I think there's more. There has to be more in that team. Meath are probably a little bit behind them. They're probably a younger team and probably developing. A few years behind Kildare. They probably have to find their style. They probably would have had a rough lesson against Dublin the last day they were out. And unfortunately, county football, the way it's played now, it's not the gung ho launching the ball in from deep into the full forward line. You know, as we would have seen in Croke Park yesterday, there was a handful of kick passes into the full forward line. That's kind of the style that a lot of counties are playing, and probably Meath are learning as they go. But yeah, you'd have to be looking at both of those and wondering, you know, where it's going. It's been a disappointing league for both of them, but probably Kildare maybe has a bit more optimism going into the championship with 2 wins in the bounce, and as I said, to have the players. So I think to be a tough ask, no matter who they're coming up against come the Leinster Championship.
Just to finish off, Paddy, can we do a quick Q&A? Just a little, not too serious questions. What do you remember of your first time ever being at Croke Park? Now, this could be as a kid, player, whatever.
First time I think it was my debut. I think. Oh no, sorry. No, we would have went up with the club in '97. Offaly Meath Leinster final. Roy Malone's goal, I think I remember that, and you know we'd no dog in the fight, but I think we were supporting Offaly that day, being from Louth, obviously. It was the old stand, the old seats that was there, so that was the first time I was there. We never really. Probably wouldn't have went to a lot of games when we were kids or whatever, but yeah, I remember that one, '97 All-Ireland or Leinster final. Yeah.
Who's your favourite player of all time?
Jeez, of all time. I think Clifford is as good as I've possibly ever seen. I think he just has it all. I absolutely love watching him. He's a bit of Everton. From Maurice Fitzgerald to the Gooch to Porrick Joyce, just the style of him. His handling is absolutely phenomenal. His kicking at both feet, just, you know, the space he creates. He can win dirty ball. He can do absolutely everything. Love watching him play. I think just the skills he has for any young player that's grown up and trying to learn and trying to look at the best players. I think he's literally the prototype player that you'd want to, if you're building a player or creating a player on a PlayStation or an Xbox, he's literally what you'd create as a player. I think he's just got everything.
Who's your toughest opponent ever and why?
Probably would have had, we played Derry above in Celtic Park. Can't remember what year it was, and had a tough time with Fergal Doherty. John Heslin scored I have a call coming in here. And just
Johnny McGee trying to get you back for...
John Heslin, I had a tough old day at the office in Navan playing Westmeath in the championship. I think John Heslin might kick 5 points from play off me. So learn from that one. Yeah, I'd always go back to those 2 games. I'd always like to think I would have given as good as I got, but they were definitely 2 games where I know I came out second best, and you know, no shame in that with the two boys I'm talking about.
What's the team you most like to beat? Now, this could be club, county, college, whatever.
Well, definitely go to club straight away to be Cooley Kickham's. We're both out in the peninsula, massive rivals in Louth club football. Next door neighbours. Good bit of history between the 2 clubs, and I suppose I was thankful or lucky enough that, you know, we would have come up against each other a lot of times in championship, and we played each other in a couple of championship finals, and we came out the right side of it. So it was always sweet beating the local rivals, particularly up here in the peninsula in the north of County Louth.
What's your proudest day playing GA?
Lucky enough, I have a lot of them. To pin it down to 1 or 2, I don't know. We won our first championship in '03. You know, very lucky. That was the first time the club ever won a championship, and was on that team. The Leinster semi-final maybe in 2010 was a special one. You know, Louth teams were there, I think maybe 4 or 5 times in the 90s in semi-finals, never got across the line. So you know, that was a massive lift as well. You know, probably 2 of those would be up there with them. Yeah.
Yeah, and who's the most skillful player you ever played with or against?
Played with, Jesus, yeah, it's a tough one. I again, very, very lucky. You played with phenomenal players, whether it was club, county, colleges, interprovincials, you know, in the Ireland team. You know, I've been surrounded by them. Some that come off the top of my head, Michael Murphy was a fresher. I think when I was in DCU, you knew from day one he was an exceptional talent. Bernard Brogan was not DCU team. Shawnee Johnson was not DCU team. Exceptionally talented players. But even if you look at Louth, JP Rooney was as skillful as anybody. He could do anything. And the Leinster final in 2010 gets some of the football that day was probably overlooked with the way it finished. Like if you look at his goal from that Leinster final, side footing into the top corner in a Leinster final in Croke Park, not too many players can do that, and he did it. And you don't, as I said, you don't see too many players doing that. We have those sort of footballers on our doorstep. So it's great to be able to say that there is Louth players that are aware or are at that level that you would have seen other county players at.
Okay, well, look, brilliant stuff, Paddy. Really appreciate it, and hopefully Louth will have a big year.
Hopefully, all going well.
Okay, so that was brilliant there to have Paddy Keenan on. Just to go through some of the other results, Cork, they had a 1-14 apiece draw with Derry. Stephen Sherlock, he scored 4 points. Ian Maguire with a goal. Shea Downey with 1-1, and Shane McGuigan, he scored 4 points for Derry. Clare, they beat Limerick in a bit of a nothing match, I suppose, at the bottom of NFL Division 2, and Clare will be frustrated with how results have gone this year. Fermanagh 1-14, Cavan 2-9, so Fermanagh will meet Cavan in the final again next week. Westmeath beat Tipperary, again, not too much at stake there because Tipperary are already gone down, and Westmeath, of course, they were out of contention in terms of getting promoted. Down beat Offaly 118-9, and Longford, they had a win over Antrim 317-312, but Longford are also gone for next year. In Division 4, Laois 6-6, believe it or not. London 2-8. Wicklow 2-8, Waterford 8 points. Wicklow secure promotion there also in the league final, along with Sligo, who beat Leitrim 115-211. Sean Carabine fisted point in the 5th minute of added time, secured the 1 point win there. And Wexford beat Carlow 116-13 points. Just to go back to the Munster Under-20 Hurling Championship, as I was saying there, Tipperary drew with Clare at Cusack Park, 20 points apiece there. A brilliant game, actually. Both sides thought they had it won and lost at different stages, heading into injury time there as well. Limerick, they beat Waterford 118-114 in the All-Ireland Under-21 Hurling Championship B Round 1. Derry beat Sligo 521-29. Plenty of other underage fixtures across the board there as well. Then the final thing is, we don't have Michael Verney here to do it, but a goat of the week is something that we always do at this stage of the game. Get your comments in and let us know who you think the goat of the week was. I suppose I would have to give it to Cian Lynch. I thought he was absolutely brilliant for Limerick throughout. And I suppose on the other side of things, Conor McManus, because scoring 1-7, like this is a Monaghan team that have clinched survival in 5 of the last 9 years in the final round. So it's incredible going from them. So I have to give it up for him. Just a reminder, we're brought to you by orgaretro.com. Use the promo code OurGame and you'll get 15% off. That's it for the show today. If you want to get the audio podcast, it's at patreon.com/OurGame. Also, if you want us to run your club fundraiser this year, go to our email events at ourgame.ie and we'll set you up and we'll have a great night in your club.